12 Steps to Holiness and Salvation by St. Alphonsus de Liguori, Bishop and Doctor of Holy Church. I was reading from this book after communion today, and I saw something amazing, and I wanted to share it with people. This is in the chapter on love of God. This is in the step on love of God. And in this section was a smaller section called Means of Advancing in God's Love. We shall now consider the means of advancing in the love of God. Saint Teresa of Avila says that it is an extraordinary grace for a soul to be called to the perfect love of God. Not just an ordinary grace, an extraordinary grace. An extraordinary grace for a soul to be called to the perfect love of God. Do you have that grace? This is what he says. To these happy souls, you, dear reader, belong. To you is given an extraordinary grace to be called to the perfect love of God. And you are one of those people who are called to that. In order, however, to dedicate yourself entirely to the love of God, of your divine spouse, as he desires you to do, you must courageously make use of the means conducive to that end. The first means is an ardent desire for this perfect love. 1. Ardent desire. With such an ardent desire, you have already taken a considerable step. God distributes his graces in abundance to those only who hunger and thirst for them. As the Blessed Virgin says in her wonderful hymn of praise, the Magnificat, he hath filled the hungry with good things. Luke 1:53. But this desire is absolutely necessary for us, for otherwise we should never persevere in our efforts to obtain the treasure of the love of God. We take little or no pains in striving to obtain that for which we have little or no desire. Say it again. We take little pain or no pain at all in striving to obtain that for which we have little or no desire. In other words, if you see something and you want it, I'm not going to break my back to get it. That's what he's saying. We take little or no pain in striving to obtain that for which we have little or no desire. Yeah, sometimes if you're working all day and you get a late call, if you're a contractor and another call at the end of the day. You don't want it. And you kind of hope that, they just reschedule. You take little or no pain to go after that for which you have very little desire, right? On the other hand, all trouble is light and sweet when our efforts are prompted by an ardent desire. Hey, I'll give you $3,000 if you wash my mirror. $3,000? $3,000. You kidding me? I'm coming. I'll be right there. Don't even stop at the red lights. All trouble is light and sweet when our efforts are prompted by an ardent desire. Hence it is that our Lord calls those blessed who have not merely a desire, but a hunger. That is to say, a great desire for holiness. Quote, "Blessed are they who hunger and thirst after justice." The second means, now we have the one, desire. Second means of obtaining the perfect love of God consists in renouncing all love that does not refer to God. So you have one, desire. Two, renunciation. Right? The first means of an ardent desire for this perfect love is an ardent desire. I'm going to make it a note of that. First means is an ardent desire. The second means of obtaining this perfect love of God consists in renouncing all that does not pertain to this love of God. Renunciation. That means I gotta give something up? Oh. What do we gotta give up? Those persons, places, or things that have heretofore led you away from God. Oh, that's a hard thing to do. God desires to possess our hearts alone and will not tolerate a rival. St. Augustine relates that the Roman Senate willingly acknowledged the 30,000 gods of the pagans, while they refused to worship the God of the Christians, because he was a jealous God who wished to be adored alone. They said, we're not going to worship him. He's a jealous God. He wants to be worshipped alone. Our God was right in claiming exclusive adoration because he alone is the only true God. Accordingly, if we wish to arrive at the perfect love of God, we must banish from our heart every single attachment. Every single one of them. That has not God for its object. The ardent St. Francis of Sales said, quote, "If I knew that in my heart there were a single fiber that was not from God, in God, and for God, I would immediately tear it out," unquote. As long as the heart is not free from earthly inclinations, the love of God can find no entrance there. Say it again. As long as the heart is not free from earthly inclinations, the love of God can find no entrance there. But as soon as it is detached from creatures, the fire of divine love is enkindled. When? As soon as it's detached from creatures. Does that mean you got to give up all of your friends and all of those other things? No. Poverty of spirit. If you were a rich person, would you have to give up all of your possessions to practice poverty of spirit, which is what you're supposed to do? No. You would detach yourself from the material possessions to the extent where you would say, I can be happy without them. And one of the ways to do that is to give some of them away. That's what Bishop Sanborn said in a sermon once. So, the second means to obtain the perfect love of God is the renunciation of creatures, people, and possessions. And also your beauty or your talents. It's all created things. As long as the heart is not free from earthly inclinations, the love of God can find no entrance, not a little bit, no entrance there. This is a doctor of the church writing this. He's a teacher. But as soon as it is detached from creatures, the fire of divine love is enkindled and grows continually stronger. The fire of divine love is enkindled and grows. So, we are attached to people and to things, but the only permissible attachment is the proper use of those things, the proper use of money, the proper use of beauty, the proper use of your talents. To get disorderly attached to these things is exactly what he's warning us against here. Therefore, Saint Teresa of Avila used to say, separate your heart from creatures and seek God. You will surely find him then. And if you don't separate yourself from creatures, and God really wants you, he'll separate those creatures from you. And you'll do it the hard way. Father Signori, the younger, wrote one day to a pious friend, quote, divine love is a beneficent robber who takes from us all earthly inclinations. Did I just not say this? So that the soul can say to her beloved spouse, what do I wish but thee alone? St. Francis of Sales expresses himself in a similar manner, quote, the pure love of God consumes in the heart all that is not God. Say it again. The pure love of God consumes in the heart all that is not God, to turn everything into love, for all that man does for God is love. St. Paul, speaking on this pure love of God, says, I count all things but as dung. Philippians 3:8. That I may gain Christ. When the love of God has entered our hearts, we place no longer any value on what the world esteems. And isn't that the virtue of wisdom? To see things the way God does. Quote, if a man shall give all the substance of his house for love, he shall despise it as nothing. Canticles 8:7. St. Francis of Sales says, if a house is on fire, they throw everything out the window. As soon as a heart is inflamed with the love of God, it seeks to divest itself of everything earthly so as to love nothing but God. Does God ask too much when he desires the soul to love nothing but him? St. Bonaventure says, no, God is infinitely amiable and supremely good. Deserving our undivided love, he is perfectly right when he desires that a heart, which he has created, should belong to him alone. And since he has given himself in sacrifice for us, he has acquired a still greater claim to our undivided love. The two prescriptions to obtain the perfect love of God are, again, number one, an ardent desire. But can you desire this on your own? No, it has to come from God. One might say, I already have it. If you do, it came from God. And if you don't have it, you pray for it. The second means of obtaining the perfect love of God consists in renouncing everything in the way. It's like cleaning up the mess in a room. To put perfect order there, let's get this stuff off the floor. Let's put it away. Paint the walls. Make it look nice. So, that concludes that part of the love of God. The next part goes into self-denial. And I think I'll either do that on another frame or just stop it here. I want to know what he has to say when you grow cold in the love of God. Because many people, they go to daily mass, they love God, and then something happens in their life that distracts them. And so I would like to see what he has to say about that. The whole thing is to persevere. Bishop Sanborn told me several times now, it's not how you live, it's how you die. Meaning that, how did you finish? How did you finish? Even if you look at how the thief on the cross finished. The one finished badly, the other one finished well in the last hour. And so I'll leave it at that. This reading was taken from the 12 Steps to Holiness and Salvation by St. Alphonsus de Liguori. And I hope you enjoyed it. Share it with a friend.